The views expressed by the speakers of CamaPlan podcasts are those of the speakers only and may not reflect those of Cama, its members, or employees. Cama does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by these speakers. Professional advisors should be consulted before implementing any options presented. Cama absolutely does not endorse or recommend any individual or organization, including the speakers. Cama, its members, and employees do not accept liability for losses and/or damages arising from errors or omissions within, reliance upon, or any use of the information provided by the speakers. Individuals are strongly encouraged by Cama to conduct their own due diligence before making any investment choices. Cama does not act as, nor offer the services of, an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. If tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other similar expert assistance is required, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Road to Financial Freedom, a podcast that allows experts to share their stories and secrets to unlocking their financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator in Ambler, Pennsylvania that is focused on educating investors with different ways to grow their retirement savings faster through alternative investments. And of course, we continue to record our podcast remotely. I'm Jess Jones, CamaPlan team member and your podcast host. Our guest this week is the founder and managing partner of Samo Financial, a boutique private equity firm that specializes in helping business owners and IT professionals invest in commercial real estate. Her passion and focus for educating investors on how to build wealth through passive investments shines through her work and her educational efforts. This includes 2 meetup groups in New York and New Jersey called The Power of Passive Investing Through Real Estate, her instructional webinars with self-directed IRA companies, and Samo's newest product, Fund of Funds, in which various product types will be built to cater to investors' interests and goals. In the early 1990s, Alina immigrated with her single-parent mother and worked her way through college to graduate cum laude. She would later work full-time in the technology sector while balancing an MBA and a newborn child. Clearly, Alina has always strived to work hard, learn more, and reach her goals no matter the obstacle. And now her success has allowed her to share that drive with her fellow investors, as she has helped her clients invest in countless diversified investments. So without any further ado, please welcome Alina Trigub to the podcast. Alina, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Just thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for such a warm introduction. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your biography speaks for itself. I felt like I knew you just from reading what I was able to even before we got started. So I'm really excited to dive in deeper and learn some more about you and your story. So if you can just start off by telling us a bit more about your background, where you were born, grew up, what you went to school for and studied, and what that experience was all like, and kind of how some of those early lessons have kind of stuck with you today.
Sure, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be on your podcast. My journey in the United States started almost 30 years ago when I immigrated here, as you said, with my mom, from what used to be former Soviet Union. When I came here, it was still Soviet Union, and I was at the point where I was going to go to college and to get my degree. I studied ecology in Soviet Union, but never really graduated because we immigrated. So I was at the point that deciding whether I wanted to continue with that or whether I want to do something new. And after talking to a lot of people, doing my research, I realized that a profession in ecology is not going to help me to probably find a job easily, and I really wanted to get a profession where I could easily find a job. And after talking to a bunch of folks, realizing that I was good with numbers, so a lot of people said, you're good with numbers, you will probably be good with accounting. I figured I'll try that. Accounting offered tons of opportunity. There are always jobs in the field. They're very well paid, and for someone who came here with nothing in their pockets and wanted to get out of poverty, that was a huge stepping stone. So went to college, And while I was studying accounting, I had to take 9 accounting courses, and with each of them I was thinking to myself, this is not something I really like, so am I doing the right thing by studying it? And my girlfriend kept telling me that don't worry about it, once you get a job, you'll just count how much money you make per hour and that will make you happy. I'm like, that's a good strategy, I'll try that. So I got my first job with none other than Ernst & Young, Big Five at the time, and was really thrilled. Great pay, great everything. I worked 24/7, of course, but while I was working and counting my hours and my money, I was still not happy. I still didn't like it. So I figured maybe it's public accounting, maybe I should try private. So I went into the private company and tried doing tax accounting there and still didn't like it. So I decided that I have to switch my careers. It's not worth doing something that I don't really enjoy doing. So I switched and moved into the world of information technology, where I worked for over 20 years. And while I was doing different things, I had different roles. The main focus was always to connect the two worlds, the world of business and the world of technology. I was, because I had knowledge of business, I was able to understand what the business requirements were and how business communicated, but I also got a sense of how technologists thought, and I was always able to kind of understand both worlds and help them connect, help them communicate with each other. And so I stayed in information technology for 20 years while progressing in my career and enjoying what I was doing. I really liked what I did. And so I got married, and for both my husband and I, our careers were progressing, and so were our tax brackets. And as a former tax accountant, I kept thinking to myself, I have to find a way to lower taxes. This is crazy how much taxes we keep paying, and the tax brackets just keep growing. That was insane. And well, guess what? Real estate kept coming up on my horizon, and I kept thinking that I should probably look into it. So I finally decided to take action about 8 years ago and started looking into real estate and started looking for properties locally here in New Jersey. And you guys in Pennsylvania, you know how prices are in New Jersey. It's probably one of the more expensive states, with taxes, property taxes here being through the roof. So I was looking for small multi 2 to 4 units for over 10 months, and I couldn't find anything. And then I decided that I need to change the strategy. I have to start looking out of state. And when I started looking for a larger multi out of state, I came across the world of syndications, and that triggered me doing additional research, looking further into it, and I realized that this was the strategy that I wanted to implement for myself. So I found my first investment. After additional digging, took action, invested in one, and after that the snowball effect took place. It just, the second one came, then the third and the fourth, and I invested in a whole bunch. And I kept sharing with my friends, my colleagues at work, what I was doing, how I was investing. And most people would say, Cindy, what? Like, nobody ever heard of the word syndication, or didn't even know what it meant. So after explaining it a number of times to my surrounding, I realized that this was a great opportunity to help other people follow my footsteps and essentially build passive income for themselves, invest in real estate, and save on taxes, which was what I was doing for myself and my family. And at that time, I also opened a self-directed account for myself. Then I opened a checkbook IRA for my husband, and then I decided that I'm going to start a business with that sole purpose of helping other people to invest in real estate. So I started my company, started growing it, started educating and explaining to people what investing was, and it evolved over the years. We've been in business for almost 3.5 years, and we are now in a fund-of-funds space. So we are offering to our investors our funds where they can invest in a fund and have access immediately to a diversified portfolio by investing in a fund, and have the same benefits, tax savings, residual income, and have that well diversified portfolio at once. And so that's my journey in a nutshell.
That's an incredible journey too. It's taken I think it's interesting just how many forks in the road you came to as well. Being able to decide, this is something that's going to make me money, yes, and something that's going to get me out of the position that I'm in, as you said in the beginning, but it doesn't make me happy. So, I'm curious about the human side of things too, the people behind the name and the investment and the fund and the numbers. So, how do you then decide for yourself, knowing all of those things? Because I think I'm the same way. It's like, if I'm in a difficult situation or if I feel stuck, I can come up with a million reasons to rationalize why I should stay because it makes more logical sense. So how do you decide then, I'm not happy, I want to try something different? And how do you overcome that fear of failure or lack of a safety net or whatever it is that could potentially hold you back? Because obviously you have been able to get through those things, and you've said to yourself a number of times, I'm not happy, I'm going to change my course. And from there, things have grown and only been moving forward for you.
Thank you for this question. It involves a number of things. So, number one, when you realize you have a good job, you have a family, you have friends, but something is missing in your life, you start looking further. Where do I look? What do I look for? I don't remember how, but somehow I came across Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and when I read that book, it was a huge turning point for me in general, of what Hal went through in his life. And I don't want to give out the secrets of what the book is about. In general, I'd rather listeners read this book, but it helped me open up my mind to other opportunities and really look at things from different perspective. And not to say that this is the only book that completely helped me turn 360 degrees. But in general, reading books that are personal development related, books such as Tony Robbins' books, maybe Awaken the Giant Within, Hal Elrod book such as Miracle Morning and others, helps you open up your mind to things that you probably haven't thought about before.
Right.
And I'll give you a specific example. If in the past I would think, no, I cannot be a senior vice president of such and such bank, for example, after I started opening up my mind and thinking differently, I would think, how can I become a senior vice president of this bank? What are the steps that I need to take to get to that point? Or if in the past I thought I cannot find any real estate investment, then later on I started thinking, how can I change my strategy so that I will find the investments? Maybe I'm not using the right strategy. Maybe I'm not taking the right steps. So let me lay down the steps that will help me achieve my goal and become a real estate investor. And so all of this lays a foundation for changing your mindset, changing how you look at things. In addition to that, of course, just like anything else, if you want to start investing or if you want to do something yourself, then you need to learn how to do it, whether it's something physical or mental, but you need to educate yourself on the topic. So the same here, I started heavily educating myself on what real estate investing involved, how syndications work, then how each and every asset class that I personally invested in worked, what is the real estate life cycle, and so forth. And the more you read about it, the more you understand, and that sinks in as you start investing, as you start talking to other people in the space, and surround yourself with like-minded investors. Why? Because other people start asking questions that will trigger your thinking and your thought process in a way you've never thought of before. And by surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you help to elevate yourself to the next level, and you're also elevating them to the next level because you support each other, because you're doing something you enjoy and you want to succeed in it. And that's how everything in life works. You need to work on your personal development, and you need to educate yourself, and you have to keep going no matter what obstacles are in your way. So that's the foundation of achieving your goals in life.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's an answer that sounds so intuitive when you think about it, but I think a lot of it does have to come from that idea of, like you said, self-development, self-motivation, and it has to come from the self. It's so clear that based on your background, have a very strong work ethic that developed from a very early age. So have you seen this work ethic pay off when it comes to founding and running your business? Or and another question I had too, just based on your story as well, at one point you're balancing a graduate degree, full-time job, family, again at an early stage of your investing career. So how do you see that work ethic pay off as the first part of the question in running your business, but then how did it develop, and how did it help you overcome obstacles that may have challenged you during that period where, I feel like it's a cliche, but women have to balance a lot of different plates and juggle a lot of different things. So, how do you overcome those sorts of things that challenge you during that period while dedicating yourself to all of those different things that you had going on?
I would say a lot of it comes from the upbringing, how I was raised. And as I mentioned, I was raised by a single mom. My grandparents passed away a long time ago, and my mom raised me by herself since I was in elementary school. And I always remember myself trying to help my mom in any way I can. She was working 2 jobs in order to make sure that we have everything for both of us, and she was absent a lot of time while working those jobs, so I was more or less self-sufficient at home, taking care of myself, homework, schooling, and stuff like that. And I remember getting my first job when I was still, I think, in 8th or 9th grade. It was obviously part-time summer job, but right. I was really proud of myself that I was able to make some money and contribute to our household. And that also came in handy when we immigrated. When you come to a brand new country with nothing in your pockets, the greatest desire that you have is to find a way to support your family. And so for my mom and I, it was also challenging because my mom decided that she wanted to get a degree here in the States. So we went to colleges at the same time. Granted, she went part-time because she was working full-time at the time, and I was going full-time in school while still working part-time and helping my mom to support us. And that desire to elevate us out of poverty was so strong for both of us that we just kept moving along no matter what challenges were in front of us. And while doing that, I received my first job offer when I was still in college in my last semester. And even though I didn't get the degree, the reason I think why Ernst & Young made that offer is because of what I was showing on my resume. And it wasn't only going to college and obtaining that degree within 3 years, but it was also showing that I was capable of handling multiple things. I'll give you an example. There were a few semesters where I had multiple, 2 to be specific, 2 part-time jobs and 2 internships at the same time. So 4 things going on. Granted, all of them were part-time, maybe some of them once a week, twice a week, and a couple hours in between. But I was able to handle full-time school and those multiple part-time jobs because number 1, I wanted to succeed. Number 2, I wanted to gain the experience that would bring me that job interview with Ernst & Young, and number 3, because I was doing things that were paying off the bills essentially for my mom and I. And then Ernst & Young reinforced those work ethics working for a public accounting firm at that time, did not take into account work-life balance, to put it mildly. So we literally worked 24/7 all the time, and I took those work ethics throughout my career, and I worked really, really hard at every single job. And what helped me was enjoying the job. It helped me to make even better work. And I think now that I'm full-time a real estate investor working on growing my business, I think I still work many hours, but I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I really enjoy what I do. It gives me a tremendous satisfaction when I know that I'm helping someone, when I'm opening up a new door of opportunity for someone who's never heard about passively investing in real estate and the tremendous benefits of it. So when I open up the door for a new investor, I feel extremely satisfied, and it makes me want to do more, especially when I get thank you notes and thank you phone calls, and when I speak with my investors and I know they're happy with investing with us. So that definitely makes me feel really, really good, and makes me want to move forward and spend even more time on my business.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the fact that I think you said it, you're going to say it much better than I'm going to repeat it right now, but you said it so well, the fact that if work-life balance is hard, no matter what gender you are, and if you love what you do, you create such better work, and it's a simple sentiment, but the more you think about it, it really runs so deep. So I really love that, and it's something that I think a lot of people should bear in mind, regardless of what their station has been this year, or if they like their job, if they don't find something that makes you enjoy the work that you do, and something good can come out of it. I really like that. I do want to talk about Samo Financial. So, what does Samo do? Who's a typical client of you? I know you spoke a bit of this in the beginning when you spoke about your journey. And what are some of the benefits that they can expect from these passive investments in commercial real estate that you provide?
Samo concentrates on offering our clients opportunity to invest in funds. And the funds are really catered to different goals that investors have. Some of the investors, for instance, may have long-term appreciation goals. They're not looking for any immediate dividends. They just want to make sure that their investment is multiplied down the road. And we offer it through our funds that offer that long-term growth. And then if we have, for instance, different type of investors, someone who is looking for the immediate income, maybe because this is something they live off, they need passive income. I'll give you an example. I have this guy who is a digital nomad, so he travels all the time, and for him, having access to the immediate income is very, very important. So we have another fund that concentrates on paying those quarterly dividends on a regular basis, and that's for folks that are looking for that residual income that's coming to them from the very beginning. So depending on the investor goals, essentially our funds cater to different classes, and we help them not only by providing the investment mechanism, but we also help by educating them, explaining them what real estate investing is about, how syndications work, what are different asset classes, what is the real estate investment life cycle is in general. We actually have been putting a lot of articles that are based on the questions that investors ask us, and in addition to that, we started putting together really short educational videos that again concentrate on explaining investors in basic rudimentary terms what passive real estate investing is about and how that works as well. And so far we've received a lot of great feedback, so people are really, really happy to see it. and they are asking for more content like that.
That's awesome. It sounds like these are a lot of folks that, we work with as well, folks who self-direct in their investments. These are people who are seeking more knowledge, seeking more opportunity. And I think that it's great that your company is literally structured to cater to that, because I think everybody, just as everybody is different, every investor is different. Everybody's knowledge of certain asset classes will be different than the next person who comes in. So I think that's really fascinating and exceptional, because I think an educational focus on how to grow people's funds is a really lovely foundation to build a business off of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you do speak regularly on the various aspects of real estate investing on a number of different webinars, platforms, things like that, about syndications, using funds in solo 401ks or self-directed IRA plans. And I know you said that you and your husband have them as well. So how did you develop your process for education on alternative investing, self-directed IRAs? I know a lot of it is personal experience, but was there another way that you developed your process for educating?
A lot of it came from my personal experiences, as you noted. So as I mentioned, originally I opened up a self-directed IRA for myself. Then later, when I started my business, I knew I was eligible to open a solo 401k, which I did. And I started using the funds to invest in alternatives. And what brought me to that, initially when I started investing in real estate syndication, all of the syndications were in a multifamily space. And after a while, after investing in a number of apartment syndications and having diversified across various geographies, I realized that I wanted to diversify my own portfolio into other asset types, and so I started looking at mobile home parks, assisted living, and so forth. And the same happened with my business. As I was working on various projects and speaking with my investor clients, I realized the need for further diversification, and I started bringing them investments in mobile home parks, in self-storage, and so forth. And at the same time, especially when talking to new investors, many people are not familiar with the self-directed option. So I always try to mention that, if you want to tap into funds other than literally investing with cash, there is this little known way of investing with your IRA money, as long as you transfer your funds from regular IRA to the custodian that can hold the IRA funds as well. And believe it or not, more than half people have never heard about self-directed IRA. So that is also an eye-opener for them, and a lot of them are grateful. And then obviously everyone needs to, again, take the time to learn what self-directed IRA is about, learn about different options, because they can do either checkbook IRA or a regular self-directed IRA with custodian. And I want them to take the time to understand how that self-directed works, also know about the tax implications if they invest, for instance, in a syndication that has a leverage component. They may potentially be hit with UBIT, unrelated business income tax. So I want them to be aware of that UDFI income, which is unrelated, not financed income. So
right.
If that's present, then UBIT may happen. So I want them to take the time to understand that, speak with their CPA about the tax consequences before they take any steps, and decide on the account type and decide on the investment for themselves. So that's also very, very critical.
Yes, I agree. I think that there's, we share a lot of that same information to our new clients as well when it comes to choosing the right investment for you. We really emphasize it's the choice that is for you. And speak to your advisors if you have any questions, anything like that, to really do that due diligence, do that homework before getting involved. But it's also, I agree with you. It's crazy just how many people, I didn't know about it when I first started working here, and I barely knew what an IRA was. So I think, especially you say for new investors, for people like myself, I'm in my late 20s, and I really can't believe I didn't really understand exactly what an IRA does and what it's capable of doing up until now, and being able to educate people on that early and then give them the chance to kind of take those tools and run with it, I think is a really fascinating concept that, you've been able to educate people on.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. I mean, we got to go and teach right before everything shut down in February. I got to go back to my high school and share with high school students what a self-directed IRA was. And I wish I had something like that at my disposal. And I wish I had enough information to be interested in it in high school. I was just thinking about like the school play and prom. I wasn't thinking about
That's amazing, Jess. That's nice.
Yeah, I wish I was thinking about how I could further myself, how I could set myself up for further success down the line and feel more comfortable about retiring than I do, right now. But it's definitely a journey, and it's different for everyone. So I'm grateful that I do have the education for it now. I'm curious too. You're a leader. You have partners. You mentioned before that you have surrounded yourself with like-minded people to elevate not only your own self-improvement, but the self-improvement of others around them. What discoveries have you been able to pick up about yourself as a leader, as a partner, and how do you, when it comes to working with others, complementary traits or things like that you look for in partners, team members, employees, investors, that you think draw you to other people or make them successful in complementary and complementary to your own version of success and your own style, that sort of thing?
That's an excellent question, Jess, and I have to say that it took me a long time to find the right partners, people that I want to work with. One of the very important skills that I look for partners is expressed well in a saying by one of my favorite investors of all time, Warren Buffett, and I actually have this quote on my business cards, which I used to carry when we used to meet in person. So the saying goes something like this: someone is sitting in the shade today because someone else planted a tree long time ago. So what it entails for me is essentially whatever I do to bring value to other people, and I realize that it takes a while for the tree to grow, but I plant the seeds now because I want to see that grow into that large tree so that it can provide wealth and abundance to many people. And I do that by sharing my own experiences, sharing my own journey, sharing with others what I went through in life and in building a business, and how my family has achieved financial independence. And I do that to help other people to achieve financial independence and to continue grow their wealth and hopefully get to the point where they are able to leave a legacy after themselves, not by taking specific steps to specifically build a legacy, but by taking actions that will allow them to make an impact on a society. And it doesn't have to be something big. You can volunteer at the local charities, you can go speak at the schools like you mentioned. For instance, I've done that in the past a number of times. I went to charter schools in Newark, New Jersey, and I spoke on a number of topics. Some of my favorite topics have always been talking about the importance of higher education, the importance of getting a college degree, how to write a resume, how to conduct an interview. I've done hundreds of mock interviews and helped students to ace that a lot. So to me, that's a critical component of my personal and professional journey in general, by being able to give back to the community in any way I can. And I've been doing that through the organizations that particularly cater to kids, because that's just near and dear to my heart, helping kids get higher education, helping them to get career in life and find themselves, find the opportunities that are great for them. Going back to your original questions in terms of finding partners, a lot comes from the experience, from making my own mistakes and even partnering up with the wrong people initially. but you live and learn, and you learn what works, what doesn't work. For instance, a long time ago, I partnered with someone who was not ethical, and I learned through the process of working with them. So I took an opportunity and worked with attorney to break that partnership and make sure that I'm not associated with that person anymore. And so one of the critical elements that I look for people is honesty, transparency, and integrity. Those are very important to me in general. And for instance, in terms of building partnership, depending on what the business is about, I always look for people that have complementary skills. And if I use an example of, let's say, syndicating an apartment complex, one person may have great analytical skills, so they may be good with underwriting. Another person may be really good people person. They may be good doing capital raising. And then the third person, if they have operations experience, if they've done repositioning assets before, they could be in charge of doing the redevelopment of the property. And so I take the same approach now, where my current partner for the funds that we're working with is someone who has the fund experience, someone who worked in the real estate field for many years. And we happen to have complementary skills where I'm much better when it comes to working with investors, educating investors. I've done a ton of educational webinars, presentations, seminars, and I think in general my education in accounting and finance has helped me to be able to explain things better to people. So I am always able to break down complex things into basic components so that people understand them. And a good example of that is the videos that I started creating this year. So my educational videos are actually animated videos. And they're very short, they're 2 to 3 minutes long, and they explain all of the real estate related topics and terms in a very easy manner so that people are able to follow me easily.
I love that, and I think you really hit the nail on the head in the beginning of your response too, the fact that there isn't a specific toolbox that fits for everybody and works for everybody. It kind of depends on what your learning style is, what your interests are. Everybody's different, but you can equip them with the tools to go and seek out those tools. So I really love that that's been your motto. I love that quote as well. That's a really wonderful quote. I love that that's been your motto throughout all of this. And I think that it's really also fascinating that you have chosen to, start creating these videos. You said this past year. So this past year, because everybody's learning style is different, and I think having them short and concise and being able to kind of teach those tools in a way that that new investors who are interested in this field but don't have that background, like I think of myself in the same way that you said, the finance and the accounting helped you become a better teacher. I, have theater and English background, and that gives me the ability to talk to people like you. So it's like none of it means nothing. So I think that's really an incredible sentiment. And thank you for sharing all of that with us. Oh yeah, thank you. So you spoke a bit about the previous mistake you made, and thank you also for sharing, your candor about the fact that sometimes people make mistakes, and there is, there's a light at the end of that tunnel. There is another side to that. Are there any, when you think back about yourself as an early investor, early business owner, are there any stories or major obstacles that you can think of that stick out to you? Any major lessons that you learned, and how did you fix it? What did you take away from that mistake, and how has that kind of carried through into your investment strategies and your leadership strategies today?
The example that I used earlier about partnering with the wrong person, in my case, and I know other people have partnered with the wrong people on multiple occasions, had taught me that I have to be a lot more careful and a lot more diligent in choosing who I partner and who I associate myself with. And in that case, as I said, I used the attorney's help to disassociate myself from that partner. However, in general, nowadays I take much longer to get to know the person, to understand where they're coming from, to do my own due diligence on them and do a background and criminal check on them to make sure that this is someone I would potentially want to work with and associate myself with. And we have discussions not only about the business but also about personal matters. And while, for instance, we don't have to agree in politics, and I don't typically touch politics at all, but we do have to have some sort of commonality in terms of goals and personal journey. For instance, again, for me, it's a long-term journey. I plan to be in this business for a long time, and I care about my investors first and foremost. So people that I associate myself with, and particularly the new partners that I am working with now and will work down the road, would be people that have similar goals and aspirations and similar approach to life and business in general, because I personally cannot work with someone who has different goals. And I'm not saying that my goals and my ideas are the best and the only right ones. Right. All I'm saying is that I need to feel that I'm in the right company with someone who has identical goals and beliefs. Because for me, it's important to serve my clients and do right by them and to be fully transparent when there are challenges, because there are always challenges. There's no business that just goes smoothly without any problems and issues. And for me, it's important to share what's going on with the projects with my investors, be fully transparent and explain to them what are the challenges that we're experiencing and how we're solving these issues. And one example that I would use is the recent snowstorm that impacted Texas. Unfortunately, we have a number of apartment complex projects in Texas area, in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth. So they've been impacted. Some of them had burst pipes. Some people were without water and electricity, and that, of course, impacted our people in the first place and then our bottom line in the second place. But we were transparent with our investors. We shared what happened. We shared how we're mitigating the problems, how we're helping the tenants in the first place to survive, and second, how we're fixing the issues with the pipes and everything. So, and that's really important in business, to be able to share what's going on with your clients, with your investors, so they're fully aware of what's going on with the project and how you're solving the issues that are happening.
Yeah, and I like that you said that before too. Transparency and integrity really do go hand in hand, especially when investors are considering who they invest with. So I think that that's a really incredible approach, because I think it's always a red flag if you're working with someone and they choose not to be transparent on something. So I think that's really great that you do approach everybody with here's the challenge, here are the steps to find the solution. How do you then, because you talk about serving the clients and really putting the service of them first, how do you vet new investments that come into SAMA or presented to SAMA? What are some of the major factors that you consider when looking into investments, and that you think new investors should consider when looking at their own first investments, even if it's individual?
Great question. So my new partner that I mentioned that I work on the funds, they actually have an underwriter specifically for this purpose that goes through each and every investment. And that's actually step number 2. Step number 1 is always meeting with the operators that we plan to invest with, learning about them, getting to know them better, and that's typically done in multiple iterations, by speaking with them, by meeting in person when possible, by learning more about them personally, their professional life, their track record. And since both my partner and I have been in real estate for a while now, especially my partner, we have developed a lot of business relationship, and now the process of bringing the projects is a lot easier, because a lot of it comes through the pre-existing long-term relationship, and the operators have been vetted, and the projects are typically very similar in nature, so it's essentially a repeat process for most of them. And we prefer to work with the same operators that we know, like, and trust, and that's the strategy that both my partner and I are using in our overall business.
Well, that's a great strategy. I think the fact that, and you mentioned this previously too, being able to do your homework and understand, that there is a lot of history, or a lot of network at your disposal as well. I think the quote that you pull out from Warren Buffett really also underlines the fact that there is a network at your disposal. You have laid the groundwork for a ton of investors, and before that, you were able to read that book, and you were able to learn from Warren Buffett. You were able to lean on the network as well, and build a network of known, trusted professionals, even within your own universe. So I think that that's a really great strategy that a lot of people should implement, even on the beginner level. Do you have then? Can you talk some more about your two meetup groups, the Power of Passive Investing Through Real Estate? How did the idea to form these meetups come to you? How are they different from what you do on the day-to-day, and how have you seen them pay off for the participants involved? Who's a typical person, and how have you seen their investment journey take off through these?
So I started my meetup groups around the same time that I started my business. So it's been a bit over 3 years that I had two groups, or I should say it used to be two groups. Now I had to merge them into one virtual group because of COVID.
Right.
Before, we used to meet separately. So one group was in the city in Manhattan, and that group was actually very different from the one I had in New Jersey, just because of the type of crowd that was coming over. A lot of folks, surprisingly, were Wall Street people that were just too tired to have all of their investments on the stock market and wanted some exposure to real estate. So we would typically meet for drinks and just network. It was pure networking group. We would spend a lot of time just talking to each other, discussing business, discussing market and real estate in general. And that was going on really well, and I even thought of doing combined events for both New York and New Jersey, and that's, I guess, when COVID happened. In terms of New Jersey group, so it was always a little more quiet, a group, I should say. We typically did a little bit of networking up front, but then we would always have presenter and wrapped up with a lengthy Q&A. And this group was geared more towards the educational content in general. Topics were about not only real estate but also alternative investments. We had representative of self-directed companies come a couple of times. We had someone talk about infinite banking concept. We had someone talk about alternative investment space overall as well, because I try to bring presenters from various spaces to make sure that people in the group are well versed, and that opens up more opportunities in general for people to discuss and for people think about creating their own new ventures. And I'm proud to say that from New Jersey group, there were several people that created partnerships. So far, from what I know, there are at least 3 successful partnerships that came out from our New Jersey meetup. Again, we are continuing in a similar trend because our virtual meetup is also following the same format where we do a little bit of networking, then presenter, then Q&A. We do host pure networking events more or less once a quarter now, and the plan is to go back to meeting in person, I guess, when most of us are vaccinated, whenever that will happen. And I hope to be able to go back and host two separate meetups down the road in the city and in New Jersey as well, because it brings people from different walks of life together and allows us to learn more about each other and about various opportunities. And I know people have enjoyed both. I actually had a bunch of folks from New Jersey that were working in the city join and attend both of my meetups as well, so that was a great experience for them to see the differences and really like both meetups.
That's incredible. You took the words right out of my mouth too. I was about to say, I'm sure you've been able to kind of learn a lot from the folks who come from Wall Street, or even the folks who are coming from different backgrounds in New Jersey too, and what they've been able to ask or learn from your speakers that you've brought in. I'm sure there's a lot of mutually beneficial opportunity for you too as a leader to be able to learn from those meetups and then bring that over to SAMO as well. Yeah,
it's been an amazing experience. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I bet. Do you? What is the goal then? And I know Fund of Funds is a newer project for SAMO. So, speaking of all of the different ways that all of these things that you do tie together, is there, what is the goal that you hope to achieve with Fund of Funds, and what have you been able to see from it so far?
The goal is to continue helping more people to invest in real estate. The reason why I like the fund structure in general is because it's much cleaner than a single asset investment. And what I mean by that, if someone is looking to, let's say, diversify their portfolio and is investing in real estate for a long time, then by investing in our growth fund, they're able to achieve that diversification in one shot, if you will, because let's say hypothetically they have 200,000, where if they were investing in a single asset syndication, they would most likely put it in 4 syndications by putting 50,000 in each. By investing 200,000 in our growth fund, they're able to invest not in 4, but in probably at least 15 or more projects. And these projects are not only diversified across number of geographies, they're also diversified across multiple asset classes and across various investment strategies, including the newly created pandemic-driven opportunity of doing the hotels to multifamily conversion. The strategy has proved itself being extremely effective. We have seen at least one exit. We are in the process of seeing another exit currently, and the results are absolutely phenomenal. We're very happy to inform that we have 4 projects in our fund, and we're planning to bring more projects like that into our fund. I mean, how can you achieve such tremendous diversification with a single investment? I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it hadn't occurred to me until you said it too. I still struggle with fully understanding what diversification means to me and how I can start to do that, given what I know, what I think my strengths are and my interests are in investments. And I think that's a really great way for someone like me to be able to kind of like wrap my head around the fact that, oh, this one thing can cover so many different things. So I think that's really incredible. Thank you for sharing all this, and thank you too for being I feel like a great teacher for me too on a lot of these things. I feel like these anecdotes make it so much easier for my brain to kind of wrap around, what exactly these big, I hear multifamily, I hear syndication, I hear it almost every week, but sometimes, I don't I don't know if I always get the full definition for for what they are. So I do appreciate, the fact that you're able to even educate me in this past hour on, what this is and what you guys do.
It's my pleasure, Jess, and feel free to come to our virtual meetup. You're more than welcome to.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll have to take you up on that. As we do wind down with some of these final questions, I like to ask a couple of fun questions, but I found that a lot of the responses that I've gotten from our guests are very interesting in terms of what they actually have informed for people's investment strategies overall. When you think about this past year, obviously it's been different from other years, and you've touched on this and how it's affected business, but have you had any more downtime to read anything interesting, watch anything new, anything that you found interesting lately, and did you pick up on any surprise tools or lessons from any of them? Like I'm always curious, especially, from guests like yourself, what have you been reading and what have you been able to learn recently?
In terms of tools, absolutely, tons of tools. So again, having 20 years of IT background, I'm definitely tool-heavy kind of person. I like to use tools. Canva became one of my more frequently used tools. I've had CRM for a number of years. I have a marketing tool. I use MailChimp a lot. I've also been spending a lot of time on social media, and I decided for myself that LinkedIn would be my primary platform. I know many people say that you have to be on multiple platforms at the same time, but I tend to put more effort into one and concentrate on one. I tend to do a lot better when I concentrate on something, so I've been putting a lot more effort on LinkedIn. I feel that this is a professional platform for like-minded people, for people that would be interested in investing, and that's why most of my educational content is shared through LinkedIn, and of course YouTube, and of course my own distribution list, people that have chosen to be on my distribution list as well. Outside of tools, I always listen to books. I actually read one book last year. I forget the exact name of it, but it was something, what would you say if you talk to yourself? It was a fascinating read. I really like it. One of the recent reads that I finished recently was more of listening. It was Flip the Script by Oren Klaff. Not only was educational, but it was extremely entertaining. It was self-read by the author, and I felt like I was in a one-man show theater. He was very theatrical in explaining and detailing things, and I really, really enjoyed that book, and I feel like I'm definitely going to reread it or re-listen to it sometime in the future. But I think the author did a fantastic job explaining what he actually means by flipping the script and putting yourself in the shoes of your potential client and how you should do that.
That's excellent. And I'm always fascinated by, can I be educated and entertained at the same time? So I will have to check that out, Alina. Thank you for sharing. So in thinking about everything we've talked about, this is a question we ask all of our guests, but the answers have just been so informative. I'm so excited to hear your answer. What would you say are your keys to building wealth and unlocking financial freedom? So these things do not have to be financial. But what is something that has informed the way that you look at your unique definition of success?
So for me, the most important things to building wealth is, number one, is to know why am I doing what I'm doing. As Simon Sinek put it, know your why. And for me, my biggest why is my family and the desire for myself and my husband not to go back to where we came from, meaning my husband's also an immigrant, so we both come from having a very humble background, coming from nothing and learning how to get out of the poverty and how to build a foundation for ourselves and our future generations. So definitely knowing your why is the most important component for me. Another important component is constantly educating myself. I've been educating myself on anything and everything I could get my hands on through the official college education. As I said, my undergrads in accounting, my MBAs in finance. So I've been learning and implementing such concepts as compound interest from day one that I was offered. 401k opportunities. I always invested. I always took the match. I always made sure that I invest to be eligible for that full match. I always listen to what other people say about finding ways to spend less time and generate passive income. So having access to residual income has been a critical component in my journey as well. So as Pareto principle states, you have to find where you can spend 20% of your time that will generate 80% of your income. And I try to apply that to my business and to the passive streams of income that I built for myself and for my family. So that's also critical. And the not last one, but the third component of this is to having the balance and not feeling that I regret anything in my life, that I'm really happy where I'm at today. I'm really grateful that I have a family and I was able to build with my husband what we built together, and I'm really happy that I'm able to share my own footsteps with other people and help other people get to the same level. And that comes down to essential for me, to having an abundance mindset and working not only with your colleagues and partners, but even with people that are in the same spaces, or as you would call it, competitors, knowing that there's abundance of products, abundance of investors, abundance of wealth, and by sharing your knowledge and working with other people and staying in touch with other people in the industry, you're not only helping them, you're helping yourself, and you're elevating yourself above above everything else, and showing that there's plenty of opportunities for everyone, and you don't have to be closed-minded and think, I can't share my secrets because nobody knows them. And at this point, everybody knows everything through social media, through mind reading, through AI, you name it. So I strongly believe in sharing everything and anything with everyone, and I believe in the boomerang effect, which essentially means that whatever you do will definitely come back to you in life tenfold.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share that and to discuss everything today, from your story to the incredible tips that you were able to offer. I think this conversation alone has planted some seeds, and I'm very excited to get to share those with our listeners. So thank you, Alina.
Jess, it's my pleasure, and thank you for asking such thought-provoking questions.
Thank you. Well, guests like you make it very easy to keep the conversation going. I do have one final question before we go, and this one is probably going to be your easiest answer. How can people reach you? Do you have any websites, social medias? I know you discussed LinkedIn. Anything that our listeners can use to get in touch with you if they have more questions or want to connect with you?
I don't know. That sounds challenging. I'm just Yeah, absolutely. People can find me through my website, samafinancial.com, or on LinkedIn. I'm also now on Clubhouse, although I don't frequent it as much as other people, but definitely they can find me through the first two channels, which is my website and LinkedIn.
Well, thank you. And thank you again. Everyone listening, please be on the lookout for more upcoming events featuring Alina Trigub and Samo Financial. But until then, thank you all for joining us this week on the road to financial freedom. Tune in next week to hear more from our experts who have paved their roads to financial freedom, or you can call CamaPlan today to learn more about how you could start to take control of your future wealth. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week. Thank you all for tuning into our podcast. We truly hope that you're enjoying your ride along the road to financial freedom so far. If you like what you've heard and learned, or if you want to hear more about certain topics that we may have already covered or have yet to cover, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We would love to hear any feedback from you so that we may continue to make our podcast the best that it can be for you, our listeners. Thanks again, everyone, and remember, tune in next week to The Road to Financial Freedom.